Van is obviously a great coach.
Got to do it with supreme focus, right? With razor sharp focus. Breathe what he's breathing.
But he's a better person.
Biggest thing you gave me was time. You didn't really know me. We were from the same neighborhood and area, but I was with a group of guys that wanted to go to college, wanted to play ball, and you actually gave us that reality that, hey, this could actually happen because we saw somebody that was like us and that we wanted to become.
Only thing that matters is you come out here, play after play after play after play, and that's the play we do. That's what matters.
Recruiting is about relationships. It's built on trust. It's built on doing the right things, and it's built on your head coaches and your athletic director, their vision. And I think we have two great leaders, both of those positions. So it makes it easy for me to go out and do what I do.
Be aggressive. Let's win. Here we go.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome Matt Roberts, Athletic Director at the College of Charleston. Matt, I put this discussion together, this podcast together to have talks, discussions with leaders from across the nation. And man, we've been blessed to share with head coaches, with conference commissioners, with athletic directors. And it's been great, to have that time, but sometimes it's ultra special. Right. And so to be able to share a moment with you, someone that I've had the pleasure to work with and had great respect for the way you operate, is really exciting to me. So, Matt, appreciate you for being here, man. Welcome.
Thanks, Van. It's great to see your face and hear your voice. So thanks for having me on, and I'm humbled that you would think to include me. So I appreciate the opportunity.
So we'll jump right in with the tough questions, right? When you think about your career, how cool is it for you? When you think about all the places you've been and realize that your journey in college athletics started with you as a walk-on pitcher at North Carolina. So now you're the athletic director at the College of Charleston. What has that walk been like for you and your family?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you, Van, athletics, the thing that we love the most about it is it takes us on adventures that we never would have imagined. As a 17-year-old freshman going to North Carolina and having an opportunity to be a walk-on and be a part of that program for 4 years. And never would I've, in my wildest dreams, would imagine that I would have had the opportunity to make this a profession. And now 45 years old, gone from North Carolina to Oklahoma and experiencing what I did there, and competing against you guys when you were at OSU, which is Bedlam weekend. So we got to give a shout out to.
That's right.
Just the people you meet, the places you go, whether it's a bowl trip, an international trip, the people you work with, you just never know from the time that I was an intern, or even a volunteer coach at North Carolina, the people that you end up working with 20, 25 years later. The fact that I was an intern walk-on at North Carolina, and there was a GA named Chad Holbrook who played baseball at North Carolina. Well, Chad's now my baseball coach here at the College of Charleston. So the places this industry takes you, the people you meet, the opportunities you get, and it's just a joy. I mean, that's what we do and why we do it, the passion for sport, the passion for teamwork, the passion for camaraderie, the passion for watching young men and women come in as freshmen like you and I were at one point, and then going off and becoming fathers and mothers and with kids and all those things. It's really cool. It's one of those things that, Matthew McConaughey said one time in what's the movie? The best thing about high school is he stays the same age and everybody else just keeps getting younger. Well, that's the best thing. I mean, he keeps getting older. Everybody else stays the same age. And that's like us from college athletics. We may get older, but everybody else stays the same age. And you just get to keep meeting these young people over and over and over again. And that's what's cool about it, man. It really does keep you energized. It keeps you passionate and keeps those juices churning to try to come into work every day and make an impact on these kids' lives, and hope that you can give them just a little bit of what we've learned and the experiences we've learned that they can take forward and make them better husbands and fathers down the road.
And I would add I would jump on to two of those points that you just made. The first one is kind of cool that Matthew McConaughey is a Texas guy. So I remember, hanging out on 6th Street and seeing him. And so it's kind of cool to see him in movies. But the second point is that, when I was in the 7th grade, when I decided that I wanted to be a coach, that was one of the things that I thought was so special about being a coach, is that, you get to influence people and you see them, they go off. I would say at that moment in my life, you get rid of them and then you get a new group.
Right.
So it never ends for us. Just like you said, it's almost Groundhog Day. We just kind of start over, with a new group of young men. And speaking of being young and getting older and wiser, we all say that if I knew then what I know now, made different decisions. Well, when you think about yourself as a young student athlete, what advice would you give to young Matt? You could talk to him today.
Well, back then I would have I would tell him, the first thing I would tell him, at some point you're going to hear about this small startup company called Amazon and take it after your name and go all in. And but in all seriousness, and that would be one thing that I would have to say to my young self. But I think it's I've been fortunate and really feel really fortunate, and a lot of it has been because of the people that I've met and the people that I've networked with. And I think that's the main thing, is you may think you know everything. You may think that you have all the answers, and whether it's your mom and dad, whether it's a boss that you have now, listen, learn, and ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be vulnerable and let people know, hey, look, this is what I really want to do. What's your advice? Can you help me? And you don't have all the answers. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to continue to learn and continue to grow. Even today, when we get to a job that's you're the boss, you're the guy in charge, and I think that's the biggest thing, Van, is to tell young people, and I try to tell anybody that comes and sits down and says, hey, sounds like you got a great job. I really want to be an athletics director one day. It's, somewhere along the way, people help me along. People help you along. It's, surround yourself with quality people that understand what you want, that share your same values, and don't be afraid to ask them for help, because at some point somebody helped them along. And I think that's the cool thing about athletics, is that's what we do. We like to help people and see them grow and see them reach their goals and be a part of that process.
And that's one of the things when I talk to younger coaches, they ask, well, hey, I want to move up in this profession. What should I do? I said, man, ask for help. Seek people out. Everybody wants. Now, you call somebody and say, hey, I need you to help me find a job, you're probably going to get some doors slammed in your face.
Sure.
But when you call people and you say, listen, I want to learn from you, help me to learn, that's what coaches and that's what people in this profession, they want to do. So 2020 has been, remarkable.
We only have a month and a half left, thank God.
Yeah, well, that month, each day feels like a month. And so there's really been adversity and challenges in every facet of our society, not just in the
Sure.
world. For us, COVID protocols, they challenge us all. They challenge us daily. The social issues have caused us to really take pause and evaluate how we do things as individuals and as athletic departments. But when you think about those two issues, just those two, how have they made you a better leader?
Well, in some ways similar, in some ways different. I think the way that they're most similar, Van, is the importance of communication and quality communication, and not just one-way communication, not just me, the AD, talking, but shutting my mouth and listening and learning. Another way that they're similar is the selflessness aspect of it. It's not about you. You know, there are a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff and a lot of stress and a lot of challenges, mentally, physically, personally, socially, whatever it may be. Have empathy for that. You can never put yourself in another person's shoes, but you try to at least listen and empathize with what someone may be going through and how they may be processing everything that's come at them, sometimes for the first time ever. The COVID, to break them up in differences, the COVID thing, you're in the middle of spring ball. Here at the College of Charleston, we were just finishing basketball. We had just finished our conference tournament, but in the thick of baseball season, softball season, or spring sports. And you're going 100 miles an hour. All you're focused on is we're getting ready, we're preparing, we got games, we're preparing for spring ball, all that. And then somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, stop. And not only stop, go home. And don't come back until we tell you to.
Yes.
That's crazy. And
Wow.
by nature, and I say this every time I talk about, by nature, especially in athletics, we're energized by being around each other. We're social butterflies. Whether it's you walking down the office talking to your coaches, you being in a position meeting room talking to your student athletes, you being on the field, getting dirty, getting in it with the guys, trying to watch them, see them improve, challenging them, challenging yourself. Me being on campus with the student athletes, with our coaches, with our staff. I'm not a sit behind the desk kind of guy. I like to get up and move around and talk to people and get to be with people. And to have that taken away from you, and then from a student athlete perspective, to have that social interaction with their teammates taken away from them, it goes against everything we're about and everything that's ingrained in our well-being and our personality. So that's been a challenge. And so, we're trying to mitigate that. And I'm sure you guys did regular Zoom meetings, not only with your football staff, but with your student athletes or your position groups. And I think the positive of it came, our communication became more frequent. Our communication became more creative. And we were challenged to try to find ways to create, whether, and then you had the additional challenge of how do you stay in touch with kids that you want to recruit? You're not allowed to go evaluate. You're not allowed to have kids come on your campus. So you're sitting there preparing for a signing day that's coming up with kids you hadn't really gotten to meet and get to know, and they haven't get to know you. So that's been a really big challenge from an athletics perspective with COVID. But it's no different with whether it's athletics, a restaurant in Manhattan or Charleston. Those that have achieved success and those that continue to do well and survive, and you guys certainly have done so the first half of the football season at K-State, is if you could handle it one, two ways. You could sit back, wall, and say, woe is me, I'm a victim. Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to accept this challenge. We're going to find ways to reinvent ourselves. We're going to find ways to continue to achieve success, but just do it in a different way. And I think through that, we maybe have a few more tools in our toolbox that when things do get back to whatever the new normal is, that maybe we can tap into those things from now and again, whether it's a, school that has now seen and they're not scared and terrified of having online classes, which would offer opportunities to more people in the community and beyond, to, again, how you communicate to recruits, how you communicate to your kids, how you stay in touch with people when you can't be with them in person. So I think that's been a positive. And then from a social justice issue, really for us is don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to listen. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable and put yourself out there. And certainly I learned some things from our former student athletes and made some mistakes and, worried about saying the wrong thing and all that. And, through talking with whether it be our Black coaches and our staff or our current or former student athletes, it's not about, what I say or how I don't say it. It's just that I care enough to talk about it and care enough to listen and try to learn and try to get better and try to have some sort of understanding of the challenges that you as a Black coach and a Black man and a father and a husband go through every day. And not looking to me to give them an answer or help or anything like that, but just understand and to try to share that bond. And then together we do what we can as a department to make small incremental changes, to educate our student athletes, to educate our staff, and then educate our campus, and then take an active role. And that's what we've kind of focused more on is talk is okay. But at some point you got to have some action behind it to back up your talk. And so we've kind of pivoted now as we've gotten into with our kids being on campus and things of how can we be more actionable in a meaningful way? How can we go out in the community? And our men's basketball coach, Earl Grant, grew up in North Charleston, inner city, North Charleston. And he's a perfect example of how actions and how he can use his platform as a men's basketball coach, Black coach in Charleston in the Deep South. And he created this plan where on his own and just the man he is of, look, how can I take the disconnect or the lack of a relationship between Charleston police and inner city Black youth and bring them together? So he and his student athletes created these clinics for young kids up in North Charleston where the police would come, kids would be there, and we were the conduit. So coming up with ways that we could use our platform that we have in the public eye to educate, to serve, and to try to make a change one, individual at a time, one small piece at a time.
I think, man, that is, you said quite a bit, but one of the things that I've learned in my life over the years is that when you keep hearing the same thing, it must be the right thing. And so one of the things you said earlier, you said communication. And that was our plan here through it all, through the social injustice, the COVID pandemic that we've been dealing with. Communication has always been at the top of the ladder for how we would operate. And, let's just talk about the pandemic, when our players had to go home. One of our players, we had a Zoom meeting to kind of announce this and to talk about the path forward with our team. And one of our players said that it will be the teams that handle this moment best that will be successful going into the season and throughout the season. And I've always held on to that because it's 100% the truth, right? It's really easy to live with when you got the strength coach and you got your coaches there and somebody's directing you and making sure you stay on track. It's really easy to do that. But what these young student athletes and we as coaches had to do is we had to separate. You talked earlier about great strength that you have as you're all together. But what this forced us to do is to be strong apart, right? So everybody had to be accountable to do their part, to do their jobs, to make sure they were holding up their end of the bargain. And as players, we kind of laugh about it now amongst our team, how those guys were lifting milk jugs and how running up the stairs at apartment complexes and how they were working out at parks, and they were doing whatever they could to try to maintain some level of conditioning.
Yeah.
And so we as coaches, there's some coaches on coaching staffs around the country, not just ours. They can't even turn a computer on.
Sure.
So you have coaches now that have it, and they're holding Zoom meetings. They're sharing their screens. They're voiceovers on XOs. And so there's all kinds of advances. You talked about it earlier, and that we had to become creative as teachers because, you have a lot of big chief notebook coaches. They write with pencils, the big, thick pencils, and that's what they've always done. but they've been forced out of their comfort zone. And I think that has been a great blessing for us as coaches, for us in the coaching community, to be able to expand the way we do things, to be able to expand the way we deliver messages to our players. So I think that, yes, there's, tremendous challenge in what we've gone through, but we've learned so much. And then from the issue of the social justice, we talked very frankly and honestly with our team and our coaches as well about this is where we are. We, as a football team, we want to be the example for our society. You have players from all over the country, from different backgrounds. You have coaches, the same situation. And here we are. We're all here together, and we're pulling for a common goal. And so when we walk into this building, we were not walking into the building, we were on Zooms at this time, but when we walk into this building, we all have to be united, no matter what is in our past and no matter what we deal with at the places that we are from, we have to be together. And so, again, going to what that young player said, is the team that handles this moment the best will be the team that is successful ultimately. And so what we decided to do is that we would continue to discuss, right? Discuss respectfully, understand our differences, but then also respect and understand the ways we are 100% the same, and see the value in that, see the value in respecting that. And I'm really proud of our team, because they have, even until today, they have continually wanted to stir each other, to stir our community, to stir the world, to make sure that we don't lose the great growth that we had during this period. Yeah, there was some tough, hard discussions, and there was some disagreement, but there was a lot of growth during this time. So let's move to the next area. Many of the leaders, I was about to say guys, but we've had some wonderful ladies on here as well. But many of the leaders that we've shared with admit that there's some great leader who has inspired them. And I've had the good fortune of having some great leaders in my space over the years. But I would ask you, who has been the greatest leader that you've been around? And what can you say that you've learned from that person or those people?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, that's a hard one to pick. It's a hard one to pick just one. When asked that question, I always have to start with my dad. And my dad was a business owner, and my dad was always the guy that if somebody in the community didn't have something, he'd go get it for them, or he'd help them. And whether that's going to the projects and picking up kids and taking them to football practice and buying cleats for them or whatever they needed to be able to play sports, he did it a lot through sports. And then just learning from him that everybody matters. And to this day, that's his mantra. He's a people person. He'll talk to a hole in the wall. He doesn't care who you are. He cares about you, wants to know about you, from the janitor, warehouse worker to CEO, whatever. And that's just kind of what I learned from my dad, is that everybody matters, everybody's important, and everybody is a person and should be treated with respect and equal. And then the two others, Rick Hart gave me about every opportunity in college athletics that I have, and he's the AD at SMU. And Rick, I learned from him, especially more so when he became an AD, of that you can be a dad, you can be a husband, and you can work hard at your job too. But that family comes first, and families, your job should never take a back seat to family. We always have to work. We have a job to do. We work hard, but your family can be a part of that. And that's one thing I love, again, about college athletics, is that we have an opportunity to immerse our families and have our kids grow up in this great environment, and that it's okay. Those can coexist, and that's healthy. That's good for you. That's good for my wife and my two sons. And then the third one would be Joe Castiglione, the AD at OU. And Joe, I learned so much from him in terms of decision making and not to rush to judgment. And Joe would always have a statement to us whenever we were considering or talking about a complex issue and what to do, no matter what it was, make sure you walk that horse around the barn. And what he meant by that is, look at every angle of everything before you put that horse to bed and make sure you understand, learning from him to look at the big picture, look at all facets of a decision, to get out of your tunnel, get out of your vacuum, and think about the impact that decision that you make or who should be involved in making that decision and how it will impact multiple areas, not just don't worry about yourself and how that's going to impact you or your division. So those are the three, folks that I learned the most from, and completely different aspects, but things that I take with me today as an AD.
All right. Yeah, that's big time. I read a ton of leadership books. And one of the themes that keeps coming up, right, in these books is the importance of getting the right people on the bus.
Yep.
I know you've been a part of hiring staff members and coaches in your career, but how do you identify the best person to fill roles on your staff, either as head coaches or as senior staff members?
Yeah, it's tough. Hiring people is not a perfect science, and there's never a guaranteed hire, ever. I think there's a couple ways to look at it. And it's one, what do you need? What do you need at that specific moment? What's your fit? So I'll use you and Chad Morris as an example at SMU. At the time at SMU, and football was really, really struggling. Arguably at the time could have been one of the worst programs in the country. And we needed some energy. We needed some youthfulness. We needed some offensive mindset and firepower to excite fans. And we needed some people that knew the state of Texas to recruit. And certainly, the fruits of your labor and the fruits of Chad's labor and that staff that he comprised, we're seeing today with what Coach Dykes is doing and the success SMU had last year and now this year. Those kids that y'all brought to SMU are finally mature enough to make an impact. And I think seeing that, that fit what we needed at that time. I think that's the main thing, is understanding your culture, understanding what your culture needs, and making sure that the person that you bring in will fit that culture, has the values that you look for an employee. They're going to work their butt off. They're not going to embarrass you, and they're going to be somebody that's going to be reliable. And we can always improve and always grow but those things in terms of a personality, behavioral type things, those are non-negotiable. But it really does. It's hard to give one specific thing, but I think the best way to understanding that is having a clear sense and understanding of the landscape, whether it's a coach or administrator, of what you need and what hole you need to plug to fill that void that's missing with whomever just departed. And conversely, I just hired a women's basketball coach last year, and we had not renewed the contract of our assistant. She had been there for a while, hadn't had much success. She was a first-time coach. So I knew I needed a strong, proven winner, somebody that had been a head coach before, somebody that could come in, has gone to places that had not much success, and was a program builder. And we think we got that with our current head coach, Robin Harmony, right now. And so, again, it goes back to, in the year before I hired a men's golf coach, and he was young, good recruiter, and, completely different. So there's no cookie cutter choice or anything like that. It's really – but it all goes back to one other thing too, is you want to hire people that are successful. And I've had, I asked this question as a naive, aspiring AD one time at one of these AD camps, that they do, like you go to for assistant coaches and things like that, and ask one of the ADs on the panel, what advice would you give me if I want to be an AD? And the answer was pretty clear and simple. Do a great job where you are now. There's no more important job than the job you currently have. And if you do a great job of where you are now, those other opportunities will present themselves at the right time.
Right. And of course, as an assistant coach, I've always heard, be where your feet are planted.
That's right.
Great job where you are. And I think that's really important. And actually being here in the role of assistant head coach at Kansas State, I've an unbelievable learning experience of working with three dynamic leaders in Chris Kleiman, who's our head coach, and Phil Shields, our deputy AD, and Gene Taylor, our athletic director. And, every day I get an opportunity. You kind of alluded to it earlier. I get an opportunity in working with Coach Kleiman to see, as an assistant coach, some of the things that he, as a head coach, is experiencing, some of the decisions that he has to make as a head coach. Because, when you're an assistant coach, you worry about running backs, or you worry about your offensive line, and that is your single-minded focus. But when you are the head coach, you have to think about the team as well as the offensive line. There's something going on with the offensive line. That is that offensive line's coach's most pressing issue. But the head coach, he has thoughts of that as well, but he also has to deal with the entire team. And so that's been a dynamic experience for me to be able to, and I'm very thankful that Coach Kleiman has given me this opportunity. There are some days where it's I lose hair a little bit, but he's lost just as much as I have. So, at the end of the day, it's been a tremendous blessing. But talking about staff and leadership, what would your staff say about your leadership style? And then I would ask, has your style changed over the years?
I think I've been pretty consistent. I think I'd like to think that I'm probably a little more deliberate and maybe a little bit more patient right now than I maybe was 10 years ago. I definitely believe in letting the people that work for you do their job and getting the heck out of the way. I even said that to one of my staff members today that was, talking and saying, man, you've done a great job of getting everything ready and you got basketball started. I said, man, I hadn't done a thing. I've just told you guys I'm here to support you, set a course, and let y'all do the work, and y'all knocked it out of the park. So I like to, let my staff do their job and let them know what I expect. I think any good leader has to set a blueprint and set a plan. It's hard to have success without a plan. It's hard for you guys to win a game if you don't have a game plan and don't communicate that to your student athletes. So you've got to start. That's to me one of the main jobs of a leader, is to set the culture and set the direction for your department, and then give people the resources they need to go out and utilize their talents to be successful and stay the heck out of the way. And then when it comes to decision making, it depends on what the decision is, in leadership. My default is to try to be transparent and open and discuss that with the group if you have time and if the nature of the decision is correct. But sometimes that you got to make a tough decision, and it's your decision alone, and you gather the information and try to make an informed decision. But it's up to you and you alone, and you may bounce it off one or two people just to kick the tires a little bit, but you're not maybe as inclusive as you would be. But I try to be inclusive. I try to do that through service and allow people to give feedback and hear their decisions. Because I believe too that the more times you include people in the decision-making process, even though you may already know what your answer is going to be, and even though you may know as a leader, I don't care really, what you say is going to have some influence, but this is really what we're going to do. The more you include people in that process, the more buy-in they're going to have in helping generate the positive outcome. So that's why I try to be as inclusive as I possibly can.
That's one of the things that I've really in the last few years have learned as a leader, that, you know, people expect you to make the decision, right? And actually they get frustrated with a leader who does not make decisions.
Sure.
They expect you to make a decision, but they still want to be heard. Right?
Yep.
They still want to voice their opinion on whatever it might be. We talked about it just a second ago about diversity, and you know, I think that, and I've said this many times, that diversity is strength. There is when you make decisions, no matter what they may be, when you see it from, like you said in one of your lessons, walking around the barn.
Walking the horse around the barn.
Walking the horse around the barn. You get to see things from different angles. And that's an analogy of diversity, is having an opportunity to see things from different prisms, see things from different eyes. There's strength in that, in my opinion. And you have an understanding of that because you helped develop the Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity Action Council. So how did this come about? And what are some of your goals in this area?
Sure. Well, yeah, when, you know, for a lot of it spurned off my experiences, whether it be at OU or some of the things that Rick and I and Monique Holland implemented when we were at SMU. And when we got to College of Charleston, we didn't have a lot of educational opportunities that centered around diversity and inclusion, whether it be with our coaches and staff or student athletes. And so 2 years ago, we reached out to our Department of Institutional Diversity and Office of Institutional Diversity and asked them for help in creating a similar concept to what we had and what you experienced at SMU, just to help educate our staff. And you know how it is in athletics, right? Hey, everybody says, man, what are you talking about? I work in athletics. You know, I live in diversity every day, all day, every day. And we may think we understand what that is, but until you hear other people talk and until you educate yourself on the breadth and the depth of other people's experiences and the way they may view the exact same topic in a completely different mindset, you really don't start to understand and appreciate our differences. And I think by doing that and educating ourselves and having an appreciation and understanding, and even if it's a subconscious thought that before I say something or before, that may not mean, you know, what he or she may think about that. So I think that's kind of been our charge and what we did. And then obviously with all the tragedy that continues to happen in our country and the most recent tragedies that have occurred over the past 6 to 8 months, it gave us an opportunity to take what we had already established, formalize it in a more meaningful way, and include more of our student athletes and our SAC leadership. And we have an unbelievably talented man. You need to remember the name Jamal Walton. Jamal was my first hire when I got to the College of Charleston. He was the director of marketing in Alabama, and I've known Jamal for a while. Jamal was a DB, all-conference DB at VMI, and young black man, and he is now taken our program and our department to unseen heights when it comes to diversity, inclusion, education. And, you know, we looked at ourselves, Van, much like you said with your football program at K-State. If we as a department at the College of Charleston can't be leaders on our campus and set an example across our campus for how people should appreciate and respect each other's differences, celebrate each other's differences, and see the positive of that and take that culture across our campus and into our community, then shame on us. Because if we can't do it, then man, it's going to be tough for anybody else to do it. Because we live and breathe it every day, but then we got to act on it too. So a lot of that came through. It started off with educational programs, and it really, one of the first things we did, Van, is we had one of our former student athletes who's with the Charlotte Hornets, kid by the name of Joe Cheeley, and we reached out to Joe and said, Joe, could you lead an open kind of town hall forum with just our student athletes? And only you would talk and the student athletes, but a few of us just would want to sit and listen so we could hear and learn and see what, and this was very early on. This might've been in April, May.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing we did and we did a couple of those. And then we did a couple of other educational series. One of your alums, Emmanuel Acho, has this great series, conversations, awkward conversations with the black man. Fantastic. If you haven't shown your kids on your team that, you need to. It's amazing. He does a phenomenal job with that. And so what's been cool about this is people, whether they're 60-plus-year-old, been around the block, been in the department, white, Jewish man that works in our department, to young African-American, coaches, to hear them say, man, that was really powerful. That was really impactful. Thanks. That was helpful. I really got a lot out of that. Means we're making a difference. And that's, at the end of the day, our goal is not to change people's opinions or change people. If we can just get people to subconsciously or consciously think differently when they see something or say something, or just have a greater appreciation and empathy for their fellow coworkers or student athletes, then we're starting to make a difference and do our job.
Right, 100%. I believe that, where we are as a country is that it's really easy to highlight. You have on a green shirt, I have on a blue shirt. It's easy to highlight the differences, right? And guess what? There are different things. Let's respect those, right? Let's respect those, but let's work together like we talked about, like we do in athletics all the time. Let's work together to make our world a better place. Let's not let our differences have us divided. Let's not let our differences make us pull against each other, because we all want the same thing. Everybody wants to be able to take care of their families. Everybody wants to live a certain way. And so if we all want that, let's join together to fight for that. I think it's important that, again, like you said, that we make commitments as leaders in athletics to make sure that we hold those things as long as we can, and that we keep our young student athletes locked in on those values, on that vision.
Yeah, no question. And I think too, and it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay It's okay to feel awkward and ask a question, but the worst thing you can do is be quiet and not talk, and not be inquisitive, and not be afraid to sit and have a question and ask you something that, earlier I may have been like, man, I'm not asking them that because I don't want to offend them or say the wrong thing or whatever.
Right.
It may be. So it's okay. It's okay.
And I've said this. I say this to our student athletes. I've said it to our coaches, that this is the moment where you can't. If someone says something that does offend you, you can say, you know what? Hey, hold on, man. That's like, I always say to my kids, listen, if someone steps on your toe, you can say, hey, you're stepping on my toe right now.
Right.
You have every right to say that. You can't punch him in the face, stepping on your toe. It doesn't match, right? But you do have every right to say, hey, wait, this doesn't feel good. And you can, like you said, be vulnerable. You can work through it. And, those type conversations, they may start nervous and shaky, but at the end, man, there's a really good feeling when you're in a room with people that you care about the mission, you care about why you are all in the room together. They may start awkward, but in those type rooms, when the conversation is over, man, everybody leaves with a smile.
Everybody's hugging. Yeah, everybody's hugging out. At least everybody knows that they care about each other, right?
And again, if we can do that in athletics, yeah, we're gonna win football games and basketball games and the things that we do, because that's what we do as athletes. But we can do so much more, right? We can do so much more. Now, I know that you are about developing other leaders, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, but you got a young person who is just getting into administration, who one day aspires to be an athletic director. What would you, from a leadership standpoint,
Sure,
what would you offer to this young man or young lady?
yeah. I mean, I get that question all the time. When people are thinking about getting into the industry, and I think that again, it kind of goes back to do a great job with where you are and what's asked of you, because nothing can replace that. Nothing can replace hard work, loyalty, and just being a good teammate. That is first and foremost. If you don't do that, then the opportunities won't come. I don't care who you are, what you do, where you work, where you play. You've got to do that. You got to get that part right. And then second, be patient. Put in your dues. Everybody, nowadays they want to come in as a freshman and be the starting quarterback, or they want to come in as the intern and be the boss and make, $100,000 in the first job. And that's not reality, right? You got to put in your time, work, be patient, and know that through that good work and through your connections and through those experiences that you share with other people, the opportunities will come. And then secondly, and this is something that's helped me in my career, is if you truly want to move up in the industry, and you've seen it yourself, go where the opportunities are. You got to get out of your comfort zone every once in a while. Very rarely do you get the opportunity to stay at one place and achieve your ultimate goal of being an AD or a head coach or whatever it may be that you want to be. That's difficult to do. And a lot of times, to continue to add to your experience and get you where you want to be professionally, you got to go where the opportunities are. And so if you work hard, go where the opportunities are, and then ultimately align yourself with the right people, you're going to have success no matter what profession.
This final question, Matt, is a little bit. I don't know how you'd answer it, but you've been some nice places. For you and your family, what would you say is your favorite place to have worked?
College of Charleston, of course, right?
So okay.
Right.
Other.
Man, there. You know what? This is a cop-out BS answer, Van, but I truly have been blessed to work at every single place I've been, and to be. They're all completely unique. In North Carolina is the alma mater where you went to school, friends that are great friends and best friends to this day, and nothing can beat where you went to school and where you grew up. But the 8.5 years I spent in Oklahoma, moving to a part of the country I've never lived in a state that I never lived in, and to be a part of I don't know how 6 or whatever Big 12 championships that Coach Stoops won there, and competing for 4 national championships and 2 Heisman Trophy winners, and going to a Heisman Trophy ceremony, and Blake Griffin in an Elite 8 in men's basketball, and he won the Naismith Player of the Year. Just that was pretty awesome, just seeing especially big-time football at that level, at the highest level, and being a part of that and involved in that. Working with those coaches and the administration there was an experience that man, and that's where I met my wife. So how great is that? And then SMU, where I met you, working with Rick and the challenges that we had there. That's where I really was prepared to become an AD, and a lot of it's because of the responsibility Rick bestowed upon me, but also a lot of the adversity and the challenges we had to face, whether it was a coaching change in football, whether it was the NCAA probation in men's basketball, and really having to have very difficult conversations with people and with student athletes I think that's what really prepared me to be where I am now in Charleston. And this job has been phenomenal. Our second son was born here right after we moved. We've been here for almost 4 years, and the cool thing actually about this job, as much of a football junkie as I am, Van, not having a football program,
right?
I can have a blast on Saturdays. I can watch a game and pull for people.
Yeah.
K-State, because I see you on the sidelines going nuts. I can pull you because I have friends there at SMU. But at the end of the night, when the games are over with, I don't have to worry about going into the office and getting emails or anything. I can be a true fan. And so we've actually enjoyed that as a family. My sons, they love when at 9 a.m. when College game day comes on, they're dancing, singing the song. And almost 7-year-old Carter, he's making picks every Friday night. We got to sit there and he's got to pick all the games. And he loves you guys. He calls you guys you guys are the purple Wildcats. Kentucky's the blue Wildcats. So
all right.
He quite often picks the purple Wildcats. So he's a big fan of State.
He's a good young man. Well, Matt, again, it was great to see you and visit with you again. I always enjoyed our time together. 100%, I'm a fan of your program. You don't have a football team, but you know what? I like basketball, right? I like baseball on some days. But man, we would definitely love to get you back on. I'm so proud to have had the opportunity to work with you, and we'll 100% be praying for success for you and your program.